The exhibition, entitled Wedding, includes a scene of a traditional Romanian wedding, with the main participants, the bride and groom, nașii, the godparents, socri, parents-in-law, close relatives, vornicei, groomsmen and bridesmaids, and lăutarii, musicians, against the background of a mural painting of a village in the Codri area. The author of the painting is Mihai Statnăi. The painting represents a rural landscape. On the horizon are fields, farmland, lakes, wooded areas, and a village with stone houses, covered with pots, decorated in stone or wood, with decorative gates and flower gardens. In the streets of the village are the vornicei on horseback, inviting the villagers to the wedding. The main element of the exhibition is the courtyard, where the wedding takes place. The marriage ceremony is a real celebration not only of the family, but also of the entire village, being a grand popular artistic manifestation, with each participant having their role. All the characters in the exhibition are dressed in traditional costumes. The groom and bride wear a wedding shirt and blouse respectively, cross-stitched and crocheted at the edges. The bride wears a coronet with white flowers and a white veil thrown back over her long laced blouse. She wears a catrință, traditional skirt, cinched with a girdle, decoratively woven socks of fine wool and boots. The bride holds a basil bunch in her hand. The groom has a white bouquet pinned to his chest, on his knee-length shirt. He wears white trousers and black boots. It is cinched with a red girdle. Next to the bride is the godmother, dressed in traditional festive wear, her head covered with a bariz, headkerchief, and with a wedding religious icon in her hands. Next to the groom is the godfather. Next to the groom is the godfather, dressed in a long, festive shirt, cinched with a large crocheted lace towel. Alongside the newlyweds and godparents are the bride's parents, grandmother, little sister, and two vornicele, bridesmaids, who carry a basil cross. To the left of the godfather are three vornicei, groomsmen, dressed traditionally with hats on their heads. The vornicei are improvising the dance of the bride's dowry. To the left of the godmother, next to the bride's mother and little sister, there are three musicians of Roma ethnicity, with musical instruments, improvising as they play the pipe, drum, and violin. The musician with the violin wears a straw hat and doublet. The other two musicians and the bride's father all wear lambskin hats and sheepskin waistcoats. In the showcase, in front of the podium, are presented a series of photos and pieces that reflect the customs for engagement and other wedding sequences from different areas of the country. Also on display here are the mother-in-law's blouse, small carpets, and wedding traditional towels, nefrămițe, soft headscarves, bridal crowns, bouquets from the Kamenka region, photos, and other ritual items used at the Romanian weddings, as well as other ethnic groups. Ukrainian, Bulgarian, Gagauz. The wedding represents a transfer of social and moral status to the main participants in this custom. The bride and groom are involved in all the sequences that mark the transition from girl to wife and from boy to husband, consciously participating in the actual transition and integration under a new social status. The wedding scene in this exhibit represents the moment when the bride is taken out of her parents' house, with a whole procession in front of the villagers, the dowry dance of the vornicei, accompanied by the songs of the musicians. Next to the young are the godparents, the parents themselves, grandmothers, and more vornicei, who are improvising the dance of the dowry and the dance of the bride's colac, ceremonial bread in the form of a wheel. The event of leaving the bride's house is accompanied by numerous magic acts, performed with the aim of attracting abundance, happiness, and luck to the new couple. The procession sprinkle water in front of the newlyweds. They throw pennies and grain seeds. The dowry had been gradually prepared by the women in the family, since the girl was 5 to 6 years old. It was considered that in her dowry, the bride must have almost everything that was necessary for for her future household. Traditional rugs, carpets and blankets, wall carpets, towels, bags, pillows and quilts. The dowry emphasized social and material status, being negotiated for during the betrothal. The worth of the dowry was judged by the quality of the fabric and the richness of the embroidery stored. The dowry would be escorted out of the parental home with loud cheers and whoops, and danced by the vornichei to a tune called Hostropets. Every item from the dowry was danced, and the longer the song meant the richer the girl's dowry. The items were danced 3 times around the cart, where the godmother sat, who then danced the items some more before placing them in the cart. Next to her, 2 girls with besmaluțe, handkerchiefs, guarded the dowry chest, while the boys improvised how best to steal it. The newlyweds, holding the religious icon received from their parents, accompanied by their godparents, would climb into the cart with the dowry and leave for the groom's house. If the groom was from another locality, the village boys would ask for the hulpeia, the purchase of the bride by the groom. The bride was compensated for with money by the groom, then a loaf of bread was cut in 2 to mark the signing of the pact. The succession of customs at the bride's house included the moment of ties, which were part of the category of wedding gifts prepared by the bride. According to tradition, the bride, vornichei, and in-laws were tied across one shoulder with lace towels, made by the girl's mother specifically for this event. At a prosperous wedding, up to 100 wedding guests were tied with said wedding towels. Before leaving for the groom's house, the ritual of forgiveness took place, one of the most important rituals performed when saying goodbye to the parental home. The bride and groom would sit on their knees in front of their parents, kiss their hands, and receive their blessings and wishes for a good life. The whole procession would then go towards the church, where the religious ceremony would take place. After the ceremony, the bride and the groom were met by the great-in-laws, the groom's parents, with bread and salt, wine and sweets. Everyone would sit down at the big table, where the following customs took place: the tying of the knot, the bowing of the kolach, ceremonial bread, the game of hen, and the undressing of the bride. Bread has a particularly special role during the wedding. The main participants of the wedding were each bestowed with kolach: the bride and the groom, the in-laws, the suitors, the godparents, the vornichei. Wedding kolach were distinct from all others. The bride and the groom's kolach had a wreath of basil flowers and were covered with an aframa, headscarf. These kolach were fluffy and beautiful, their dough being woven into paired breads before being baked. The bride's kolach was to be broken into smaller pieces, to be shared with everyone, and whoever ate a piece was considered lucky. The bride's gemna, ceremonial white bread that was beautifully decorated, was arranged in the 4 or 6 corners of the wedding table, where the newlyweds sat. The role of the kolach is to protect the bride and groom in the transition to their new social status, being the symbol of the forging of an eternal bond and the legalization of a new familial union. The biggest kolach, covered with a ceremonial towel, were given to the godparents and parents-in-law. The culminating point of the wedding is the custom of undressing the bride. The godmother removes the bride's veil and puts a headscarf, called casâncă or tulpan, on her head and ties her apron. This gesture is seen as a symbolic bridge to the next existential state, a transition to a new life, that of a married woman and mother.